What's up there everyone? Gareth the Cam 23 back again with what I've watched number 3, which will actually contain the stuff I've watched for the past 2 weeks. The reason I didn't do one of these last week is because at the weekend I was gravely ill. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if you'd have spun me around I'd be like a Catherine wheel, which I'll leave you with that mental image. So yeah, I'm going to change the format a little bit from the last couple of times. When I say that, I mean instead of kind of showing what I've watched kind of day by day, I get kind of confused about kind of what I've watched. Kind of I might kind of start watching something on one day, then I might kind of finish watching on the next day, and do I kind of count it as this day or the next day? So I'm not gonna do away with all of that. I'm gonna do it in some kind of semblance of order. But what I'm going to be doing films. I'm doing order of films I watched on DVD and Blu-ray, TV I've watched on DVD and Blu-ray, then TV I've watched on Netflix, and then films I watched on Netflix. And then it makes it a little bit easier to digest, and also it kind of doesn't confuse me as much, which means the video will be hopefully more kind of rapid fire, and I won't be talking for too long. And yeah, so that's the way we're going to do it from now on, and let's get started. So the first thing I did actually watch for the beginning of last week was the new release, probably the biggest new release for that week, and it was Big Hero 6, which, as you can see, is the latest film from Disney Animation Studios, and basically tells the story of Hiro Hamada, who lives in a kind of a fictional city, town, whatever, called, was it San Francisco, which is kind of San Francisco and Tokyo, which is it's more or less Tokyo really. And basically his brother is an inventor who works at this kind of prestigious kind of scientific college university, and basically he's not doing much with his life, and he desperately wants to become part of this kind of this fraternity, if you like. And he's very kind of scientific minded, and he invents this this really, I can get into detail, but this really kind of it's really cool invention. And basically a tragedy happens, which I'm not going to go into in case you haven't seen it already, and basically that spurs him on to he kind of finds this this thing that his brother's working on called Baymax. It was like a kind of a home doctor kind of thing, and basically he kind of tries to find out who did this thing that happens, and kind of he gets together this group of kind of superheroes, and kind of tries to find out what happened. And basically this is actually, as you might not know, this is actually based on a Marvel comic, which is not something I knew before I'd seen the film. I'd known that it was kind of based on something, but I didn't know it was based on a Marvel comic. But yeah, I found that from the extras that you get on this, which include kind of, there's a couple of pretty cool featurettes, but it is kind of extras light, to be quite honest. But what there is on there is interesting. Really good film. I think I gave this 4.5. Maybe that was a little bit high, but I still really enjoyed it. Fantastic animation, as you would expect from Disney. A real kind of emotional core to it, which I like the most. It's a very emotional film. Again, kind of what happens I'm not going to go into, but it's very good, and I just absolutely loved it. It was good action in there, some good kind of sci-fi, good interesting characters, kind of quite very interesting kind of plot developments. The twist in there, which I didn't see coming, which is fair enough. I knew it would happen like it happens, but I didn't know kind of who it would be. But yeah, on the Blu-ray you get this is the 3D Blu-ray, and I do believe that the slipcover on this is getting a bit harder to find, but I don't know if that is true. But yeah, really recommend it. If you haven't seen it, definitely see it. It's out on Blu-ray and DVD now, so there really is no excuse. That's Big Hero 6. And then I also watched on the same day, I knew I watched it on the same day, we have a Blu-ray that was actually featured on last week's, well not yesterday, but last week's Blu-ray DVD update, and it is Foxcatcher, starring Steve Carell, Channing Tatum and Mark Ruffalo. Also Sienna Miller's in there as well. And it's based on the true story of John DuPont, who is a kind of a very rich man who basically wants to sponsor a wrestling team to go to the think 1980, one of the 1980 Olympics, and it's I say it's based on a true story. A tragedy happened, which again I'm not going to go into in case you haven't seen it before. But I mean, what else can I say about this that hasn't been said already? It was one of my most anticipated films of last year. I'm sorry, this year even. Sorry, in America came out this year, but in the UK came out this year. It did not disappoint at all. I know a lot of people didn't rate it as high as I did, but I absolutely loved it. Usually, because when I have expectations high, they don't usually meet it, but this one very much did. Steve Carell, absolutely transformative performance. He's absolutely brilliant in this. There is a bit of humour in there, but it's very much more a dark film. Now I know a lot of people don't rate Channing Tatum as an actor, but I thought he was really good in this. He's not the kind of his usual character. He's very kind of hunched over. He's not very exactly an extrovert. He's very not really shy, but he's very kind of keeps himself to himself. I think that's why kind of John DuPont kind of latched himself to him, because he kind of sees a bit of him in himself. But very tragic characters. Like I say, when it's something at the end happened, which again I'm not going to get into, but is really interesting. But yeah, absolutely, really love this film. It's one of those, kind of like 12 Years a Slave. People say that like it's not a film that you could watch like more than like once or twice, but I could watch this kind of loads of times and still appreciate how good a film it is. And yeah, that's Foxcatcher. So that's on front of my face there. Next, I don't know when I watched this, but I watched this for the first time in quite a few years. Actually, this used to be kind of on repeat in my house on VHS. Never even had it on DVD. It's one of my favourite Disney films. It still is. It's not as good as I remember it, but it's still very good. And that is Robin Hood. This is the US Blu-ray, which I ordered kind of because I wanted to get it early. But basically, it's more or less the story of Robin Hood, but with kind of farm animals. Well, not farm animals, but kind of just animals in general. Got King John is a tiger, or a lion or a tiger. I think it's a lion. Got Robin Hood is a fox. Maid Marian is a fox. The Sheriff of Nottingham is a wolf. And it just kind of like each character is a different thing. Kind of Little John is a bear. I think Friar Tuck is like a weasel or something, or a hamster or something like that anyway, or a rat or something, or mouse maybe, or something. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, it's not quite as good as I remember it. It's very much kind of just a kind of succession of scenes with a little bit of kind of plot in the middle of them. That's what I didn't appreciate that much now. It's a bit jumbled really. It's more, like I say, it's much more of kind of like a mishmash of different scenes that somehow kind of have a plot in the middle of them, which isn't that great. It's still a really good film though. Some really good songs in this. It's very well animated for, I think it was like mid-70s. But I really like it. It's one of those kind of nostalgic films I really like. And like I say, there used to be kind of the few films. There was this. There was Beauty and the Beast. There was Back to the Future 2. There was American Tail. I think American Tail 2. There was Rescuers 2 was another one as well. It was just kind of like in a loop in my house when I was younger. And yeah, really, cause more of kind of like a time capsule really. But I really like it. So that's Robin Hood. And then this was actually a film I watched very early in the morning because, like I say, I was ill, and I basically got up early and I thought, what the hell? I'm up now. Might as well watch a movie. A movie I did watch was This Is Spinal Tap, which if you haven't seen it, what the hell are you doing with your life? Basically, is like a mockumentary, kind of the original and the best mockumentary about this band supposedly from the UK called Spinal Tap. And the kind of the film is kind of chronicling the release of their new album called Smell the Glove. I'll still laugh when I hear that title. And it's basically kind of how different comedic situations pop up as they're kind of trying to kind of, I guess, break America and release this album. And nobody likes and they kind of get in trouble with the record company about the cover of the album. What's wrong with being sexy? Love that line. But yes, it's hilariously funny. One of the funniest films ever made, bar none. There's no denying that. It's absolutely hilarious. At least I think it is. Maybe people don't find it as hilarious as some people. But the fact that it's got like such a big cult following really should tell you something. Some really good kind of actors and stuff like this film, and also musicians as well. People like Kings of Leon, Ricky Gervais, which is in a kind of a documentary on the Blu-ray as well. This is the steelbook, a very nice steelbook at that. Of course, with the thing, it's got quite a lot of finger marks on it. And it's like how more black can it be? Like none more black. And then the inside, and so yeah, too much fucking perspective. Yeah, really, if you haven't seen it already, definitely get up on it. You need to see it. It's basically kind of like a rite of passage for kind of film watchers. You have to see this film. I absolutely love it. I can never stop watching it. I watched it the first time for a few years ago on. I think when it was on TV actually. But yeah, love this film. This is Spinal Tap. And then the next film is a film that I watched I watched on Saturday. It kind of had a little bit of a movie night, and the second film I watched, but the first film I'll show now, is a David Lynch film. It's like 17 seconds under exactly 3 hours, and that is Inland Empire. I mean, what more can I say? I've never not liked a David Lynch film, but on the other hand, I've never understood a David Lynch film, so it kind of balances out really. But this is basically stars Laura Dern as an actress who gets a role in this really kind of auteurish film, and basically they find out that it was based on a kind of a gypsy folk tale, and in the past they tried to make the film, but then the two leads in the film were murdered, and basically it's kind of a kind of, well, not alternate realities, but kind of. It's like she starts making the film and then she starts kind of going crazy and thinking that the film is her real life, and that is about as much as I can kind of explain about it. I mean, I looked on the internet for like Inland Empire kind of theories and stuff, and there's a website that is like five or six parts, and each part is like 3 pages, and it's like going into kind of interpretations on kind of what the film is. Then it's like, is she like a murderer? Then I always think that there's like the girl at the beginning is kind of imagining all this stuff, and it kind of branches out into kind of different kind of stories. Maybe she's like schizophrenic or something, but other people are kind of I mean, that's the best thing about David Lynch films, is that you can kind of, if one person can think one thing and another person can think completely the other thing, and they can both be valid explanations. But yeah, it's a bit of a slog. The digital kind of photography is a bit, at first it is a bit kind of like a mind meld, I guess, but it's really interesting. You can't, I mean, honestly, you cannot say, if you don't like David Lynch films, you can't say they're at least interesting. But yeah, this might be the hardest one to understand. Mulholland Drive is really hard, but this one is definitely harder. I mean, the only real David Lynch films that are kind of straightforward are like The Straight Story, ironically, kind of Elephant Man, Dune. I think I haven't actually seen that, so I don't know how straightforward that is. But the rest of his films are very kind of interpretive. But I love that about his films, which is why he's in my top 5 film directors of all time. Absolutely love this guy. Every single film I've seen of his, I've absolutely loved, and this is no different. So yeah, but for the casual film go, it's not a film to watch really. You need to kind of concentrate on it. I mean, honestly, it's nearly a horror film. There's a couple of parts I can't even think of without shivering. Obviously, there's the phantom bit at the end, which still freaks me out. But there's the thing that scares me the most is that bit where she's running towards the camera. Oh God, it makes me, oh Jesus, it makes me cringe even thinking about it. But yeah, really, really good. I do also own the Read and One DVD, which has like an hour and 20 minutes of kind of extra footage as well, which this doesn't, but it has lots of interviews and stuff there, which is pretty good. So that's Inland Empire. The thing I watched this first film before Inland Empire, and I watched It Follows, which I got on French Blu-ray on Saturday. One of my favourite films of the year, bar none. Basically, it's kind of a horror thriller film. And basically, it has this it that basically is passed on through sexual intercourse from person to person, and the only way to kind of get rid of this curse is to have sex with somebody else. And if someone if the person who has it is killed, it goes back to the other people to try and kill them as well. And it kind of at the beginning of the film, this thing is transferred onto her, and it's basically her trying to kind of find out what this thing is and how to get rid of it. But it's absolutely, I love the way it was filmed. David Robert Mitchell is really one of my favourite indie film directors now. It's absolutely incredible. The music is amazing from Disaster Piece, so you may, if you've played the game Fez, it's very much like that. The thing I did actually notice on the Blu-ray is that the music wasn't as loud as the kind of the dialogue stuff. I don't know if that's kind of just down to maybe my TV or if meant to be like that, but I remember the music being very much louder when I saw it in the cinema. I actually saw it twice in the cinema, but yeah, I think it probably is kind of the way it's meant to be. But yeah, obviously it's the French Blu-ray, so but yeah, so I absolutely love the film. It's very atmospheric. It may not be the scariest film, but it is definitely very, very creepy. It's extremely well made, very well acted. Got Michael Monroe, Kia Gilchrist, who you may have seen from the United States of Tara. There's a lot of good kind of up and coming actors, but kind of actors who haven't done much stuff before. But I absolutely loved it, and I watched it. So there you go. And then I actually watched the other film that was featured on this Blu-ray, The Myth of the American Sleeper, and I'll put that down, and I'll put a picture right there. And basically, it's the debut feature from the director of it. Follows David Robert Mitchell, and it kind of follows this group of kids who try and find love on the kind of the last day of summer vacation. And there's it follows different characters. There's this kid who sees this girl at the supermarket who tries to find out who she is. Then there's a girl who kind of wants to get together with this pool boy, and basically how she does that. There's a girl who's kind of the new girl at school who has a boyfriend, and then she finds out something about the boyfriend, and she doesn't really like it. Then there's a guy who is kind of like a college dropout who tries to reconnect with a couple of twins that fancied him in high school, and it's very much you can kind of tell his influences. There's a little, I think it's mainly kind of Larry Clark with a little bit of Van Sant with just a little sprinkling of a Linklater. But I really, really liked it. It's a very solid first feature. The acting isn't great at times, but these are kind of some of these are first time actors as well. So you can expect that from some people. But the acting was pretty poor at some points, kind of the younger kids really. Some interesting ideas. I like the way it was executed. Like I say, it's very much kind of like Larry Clark-esque, and I do believe it looked like they did kind of film it kind of around the same place that they filmed It Follows as well, which is kind of an interesting kind of link there. I don't know whether it is, but it looked quite similar. It's a very good coming of age story, which I very highly recommend. Actually, I was surprised at how much I actually liked it. Yeah, but it's really good. I recommend, if you can see it, I recommend do see it. From 2010, so quite a few years ago, but it's still quite contemporary, I think. It may not go down like the classics of coming of age films like Stand By Me or I don't know, any other coming of age film, but it is very interesting, and that's why I liked it really. And that's it. So yeah, and then the other thing that I did actually watch on DVD, which I do not have here, so a picture will go up right to there, is Stephen King's It. And now this is, well, it's technically a film, it's more mini-series, but it's based on the Stephen King novel. And it basically follows these, kind of the first part is this group of kids who are terrorised by this thing called It, or Pennywise the Clown, played by Tim Curry. And kind of the second part is kind of like the adults. So basically this It comes back, and they try to kind of like kill It near the end. But yeah, it holds up quite well now. Actually, it's from the 1990s, but the acting is very good. You got some kid actors in there. You got Seth Green in an early role. Got Emily Perkins, who Emily Perkins, who you may have seen in later star in Ginger Snaps. You got I can't remember what he's from or kind of what his name is, but the guy who plays kind of like the main group, the kind of the leader of the kids. Also, and of course you got the adults. Got John Ritter. Got again, I can't remember his name, but the guy who used to be in I think it was the Waltons, was it? You got Richard Mazur. You got who else? You got Tim Reed, who played the dad in Sister Sister. He's in that as well. And it still holds up to today. It's still very, very scary. And of course, we all know about the kind of the remake. Will it happen? Should it happen? I don't really know. I have no kind of opinion either way, so I'm not quite sure really. But yeah, that was also a thing I watched. But like I say, I don't have the case anymore, so I can't kind of show it. But there you go. And then the next group of things are actually what I watched, what the TV shows I watched on DVD and Blu-ray. And the first thing I did watch was Grange Hill Series 1 and 2. Now, I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But again, it's another show that still holds up to this day. It's from the mid-70s. I mainly started watching this due to the death of Terry Sue Pratt, who played Benny Green, quite recently. But yeah, that's kind of what prompted me to watch it. I'm not going to... I got to a point where I was like watching like every single series back to back. I'm not going to be doing that again. But yeah, it shows kind of different. I'm trying to be kind of quick here. Different kind of issues that would come up when you're kind of younger, like bullying, kind of first day nerves, kind of trying to impress the cool kid in school, and things like that. But it's really, really well done. The acting is not that great, but these are kind of kids from the 70s, so you can't expect too much. But I really enjoy it. So that's Grange Hill Series 1 and 2. And they're going to fall over, so I'll put those up there. And the other thing I watched is Gimme, Gimme, Gimme Series 1, 2 and 3. Again, not much to say about this show. It's very... gets to a point where the whole thing is based on innuendo, which gets very, very tiresome quite quickly. And that stems from kind of watching it back to back. If you watch kind of like maybe 2 episodes a night or something, it might look a bit better. Obviously, when people saw it on TV, it was more kind of like an episode a week, which is the best way to kind of to see this really. It's, like I say, it gets very tiresome. It is funny at times, but it's quite kind of sophomoric, I guess, kind of like giggly comedy that only certain people would find funny. But I mean, I watched the entire series, so that must show you something. But mainly it's because I was just bored. Maybe, I don't know. But it's basically James Dreyfus and Kathy Burke play a couple of flatmates. He is kind of trying to be an actor. She is trying to be anything. Basically, kind of like how the comedy situations ensue when they're trying to kind of achieve their dreams and stuff like that. But it's okay, but it's quite iffy. But yeah, it's Gimme Series 1, 2 and 3. And next is something that I've actually kind of like I'm watching kind of through every so often, and that is News Radio. I've watched season 1, season 2, and I'm like maybe like 4 or 5 episodes into season 3. But yeah, really good show. It basically tells the it's basically set in this news radio station, this fictional news radio station called WNYX. And basically at the beginning of the series, Dave Foley plays Dave Nelson, who at the beginning of the show kind of takes over as the kind of the head of this radio station. Like becomes a new news director, and then there's kind of he starts a relationship with Maura Tierney, who plays kind of I don't know exactly what kind of character she is, but what I like about this is that there's no kind of will they or won't they. They actually do in like the second episode, and it's kind of how their relationship is strained when kind of other people find out about it, and they're kind of trying to keep it a secret. But absolutely incredible cast. You've got Dave Foley, Maura Tierney, Andy Dick, Candy Alexander, Phil Hartman. Phil Hartman is absolutely incredible in this. Joe Rogan, who else? Vicki Lewis as well. But I mean, honestly, the star of the show really is Phil Hartman, and of course, this show is kind of marred by the fact that he was murdered in like series. Was it season 4? I think they did like 1 season without him. But it really lost it really, but they haven't actually got to that point yet. So I might show this again, kind of like show different episodes and what have you. But for now, I've watched season 1, 2, and I'm a bit into season 3. And it's just one of those things that I'm going to just kind of like watch every so often, maybe like one or 2 discs a week. It's a 9-disc set, And like I mentioned in my other one, the fact that it's like that, but I've actually ordered a just a 9-disc Amaray case, so I can stick that in there when it comes. And but yeah, I absolutely love it. It does, like, some of the characters do kind of grate a little bit. Like every single like cold opening ends with Andy Dick falling over for some reason, and Dave Nelson or Dave Foley kind of come off a bit kind of dickish at times. Like he's better, I think he's better than anybody else. But yeah, I mean the style of the show really is Phil Hartman, and it's just a tragedy that what happened to him. And yeah, I honestly think that if Phil Hartman was still around today, he'd be one of like the best kind of like comedy character actors out there at the moment. But that never happened, which is unfortunate. So there you go. So that is News Radio. So here we get to the Netflix watches. Now what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be showing, I'm going to be talking about what the TV shows I watched and then what the films I watched. So yeah, the TV shows I watched was, the first thing I did actually watch was the first 2 episodes of the new kind of Netflix original series called Between, and it basically is exactly what happens. Yeah, basically this virus is kind of killed in this small town. This virus starts killing off all the adults, all the people that are aged 23 or over, and it's basically and the kind of the city gets quarantined. And I've only watched the first 2 episodes. It's like kind of a weekly show. The only real kind of like big actor is Jeanette McCurdy, who you may have seen in iCarly and stuff like that. Her acting isn't brilliant in this, but to be fair, none of the acting is. I mean, it is serviceable, but it's nothing special really. It's not one of those. I found myself quite hard to kind of concentrate on it really. It didn't really hook me that much. I think what I'll do is when the entire series comes on, I'll kind of like watch it, maybe not back to back, kind of watch it like easier, because I don't think it quite works as well as an episodic TV show. Whether they're going to do another series of this, I'm not sure. It's a Canadian show. I believe in Canada it's actually shown on like an actual TV station, but anyway, everywhere else it's on Netflix. It's not a bad thing, but it's nothing that I'm going to kind of continue on with. So it was okay, but it had like a vibe of kind of maybe like 4400 or some other show as well. I cannot think of what it was, but it had kind of vibes of different TV shows, but it didn't really have kind of an identity, which is kind of what kind of let it down a bit. But it was okay. So that is Between episodes 1 and 2. Then I watched a couple of things I do actually have on DVD, but I watched these on Netflix. And the first thing I watched was the complete series of Extras, starring Ricky Gervais, what is her name? Ashley Jensen and Steve Merchant. You got back in there. Some basically Ricky Gervais in the first series plays Andy Millman, who's a film extra who tries to kind of get a big break as an actor. And each show kind of focuses on a kind of a different like superstar, like Ben Stiller's in one episode, Kate Winslet, Sam Jackson, and basically how kind of play exaggerated versions of themselves, which you'll kind of see as a theme in Ricky Gervais's TV shows. And then the second series, he starts a comedy, basically a comedy show that he wrote that is kind of altered by committee, like each person kind of it basically kind of devolves into this like catchphrase based kind of like racist, sexist kind of comedy, kind of lowest common denominator. And it's trying to kind of make it bigger than what it actually is, and then it kind of all devolves into kind of this weird kind of thing. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about, so I'll stop now. And then there's the Christmas special, which basically shows him kind of how this fame from this TV show has affected him, from his relationship to Maggie and kind of to other people as well. But it's a really good show, I think. I still think The Office is kind of Gervais's best work, but I do enjoy things. He also kind of what's the word? It benefits from Stephen Merchant playing Darren Lamb, Ricky Gervais's agent. He's really funny in this, and I love the fact that it's kind of like a springboard to kind of other things like Hello Ladies and the films he's been in and stuff as well. kind of more hits than misses. Movie 43, I'm looking at you. But yeah, really funny show. It's very emotional at times. The bit I actually cried in at the end of, kind of near the end of the Christmas special. And there's also one of my favourite moments on any kind of Ricky Gervais thing at the end of episode, I think 2 or 3 of series 2, with the obsessive fan. I love that episode. Probably my favourite episode of the show, and it contains my favourite moment of any Ricky Gervais TV show. So that is Extras. And the other thing I watched, again I have on DVD, I watched the complete series of Black Books, but strangely I did it in a kind of a weird order. I actually watched one episode of series 1, The Big Lockout, and then for some reason I watched, I think it was either series 2 or series 3, and then I kind of went backwards and watched series 2 and then series 1. I don't know quite why I did that, but I did that. But it's written by, at least the first series was written by, I think, just Graham Linehan, and then it was Graham Linehan, then, no, I think the first series was him and Dylan Moran, and the third series was just Dylan Moran, and I think the middle was maybe just Graham Linehan, I'm not quite sure anyway. But it's basically kind of a character-based comedy starring Dylan Moran, Tamsin Gregg, and Bill Bailey, as basically kind of Dylan Moran plays this really kind of not very nice guy who basically owns a bookshop, but he doesn't really know why he owns a bookshop. He doesn't like any of the kind of the customers coming to his shop. He doesn't even like ordering books. But it's kind of, and Bill Bailey kind of at the beginning of the show plays his lackey more or less. He kind of works for him, but he quite kind of physically abuses him, and physically and verbally abuses him. But it's really, really funny, very surrealist. If you've seen any of Graham Linehan's other works, you'll know kind of what to expect. It's kind of surreal, but it's like this one where it's like it sets up kind of a joke at the beginning of the show, and then at the end of the show it kind of wraps it up. Which I'm a big fan of, that style of writing. It's like surreal, but it's very real at the same time, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I really enjoy it, and it's one of those shows that I could watch kind of again and again. I think the first series was like 99, and I think the third series was 2004, so I think there was more of a gap between series 2 and 3, I think. Was it 1 and 2 anyway, it doesn't really matter, does it? So yeah, that's Black Books, and yeah. So next we get on to the films I watched on Netflix. Again, I won't talk about these too much, hopefully, because I don't want to make this like an hour video. But the first film I watched was a film that I saw. I can't remember who it was, but who had on Letterboxd. I saw someone that had seen this, and then I was on Netflix kind of like a day later, and I saw that on kind of like the beginning screen, this film was featured, and it is a documentary feature called Hot Girls Wanted, and it's basically not really an expose, but it's kind of a documentary on the kind of amateur porn industry. Now, I know what you're going to think, like porno. It's not really isn't like that. It's very much kind of showing you the horrors of kind of amateur porn and kind of the different niches they have. It's absolutely horrible, some of this stuff. But it's interesting enough. It's not too long as well, which I liked, and it kind of follows 3 kind of amateur porn stars, and it kind of shows what their real name is and their porn star name is. And it's kind of basically this guy's kind of like an agent for amateur porn kind of studios, and all these girls live in this one house with these dogs and stuff. And it's very much an expose on kind of the am porn kind of business, I guess. It still rakes in quite a lot of money, which to be honest, I'm not surprised by at all. But it kind of doesn't really know what it is at times. Is it an expose, or is it kind of like showing? It doesn't quite know what it's meant to be kind of portraying, really. It's produced, or at least co-produced, by Rashida Jones, who obviously you'll know from kind of Office, and you may know as Quincy Jones's daughter. And yeah, it's interesting enough. It's very eye-opening, and dare I say it, throat-opening. But yeah, it was interesting enough. It's nothing it's nothing that I haven't really seen before in other kind of documentaries. Obviously, the subject matter is a bit more extreme, so it's very much an 18 rated documentary. It's interesting enough, but it's nothing I'd watch again. Guarantee that. It's nothing I really wanted to watch anyway. mean, there's some stuff in this film that I actually cannot get out of my head, which is really horrible. But yeah, that is Hot Girls Wanted. And the next thing I watched, actually I watched these on the same day. The first one I watched was Obvious Child, which is basically a film, a kind of an abortion comedy, and it's basically this stand-up comedian gets dumped by a boyfriend, has a one-night stand with a student of her mum's, and basically she becomes pregnant, and then she decides to have an abortion, and then kind of she doesn't tell the guy, and then all these kind of situations crop up. And it wasn't a bad film, I just didn't think it was that good either. It was kind of very kind of middle of the road. It's nothing really special. I didn't really laugh that much. I laughed a few times, but nothing really, no kind of like hearty laughs. But I don't know, it was okay. I said I didn't laugh that much. I did appreciate kind of like the drama side of it, but it wasn't. I don't know, it just didn't really do anything for me. I know a lot of people kind of rated it quite highly. I'll put it this way: I'm glad I didn't pay for it. I'll say that. But yeah, it's just there. It's nothing really interesting, so I won't be talking much about it. So that's that. And the last film I watched on Netflix, and the last title in this what I watched video, is a film, the directorial debut from David Cross called Hits. And it basically follows kind of a different group of people, and it follows a guy called Dave who works at this dump, who is very much a complainer. He complains a lot at kind of these these like open forums that you get kind of people to complain to kind of the local council. And basically a rant he has at one of these meetings goes viral on the internet, and then this political group want to kind of like travel to this place, kind of like champion the cause and stuff. And all these different kind of groups converge in this one place to kind of it's kind of like they play off each other, and it's kind of who can get this kind of like this guy to kind of it's basically kind of, I don't know, like publicity kind of thing. But it doesn't quite know what it is. I mean, is it a satire? Is it like a straight up comedy? Is it a drama? It's kind of doesn't really know what it is. The script is not that great. It was kind of boring. I do agree when people are saying it's like one of the worst films I've ever seen. It's not great. I think it does need to kind of get you in the right mood. I think if you're not kind of if you're not on board with kind of the eccentricities and kind of these weird things that go on, you're not really going to enjoy it. There's characters that don't mean anything, like Michael Cera's in it for like 2 scenes for like no reason. Julia Stiles is in this film for about 10 seconds as someone trying to get rid of a kettle. Why? There's characters that don't really do anything, kind of plot points that don't really amount to anything. I will agree that the ending is absolutely hilarious though. Oh man, it makes me laugh even thinking about it. But yeah, it really is. It is funny at times, but at times there are scenes that are in there that don't really need to be in there. It is too long. It needed editing down a lot. It's an hour and 40 minutes. An hour and 40 minutes is very much too long for this. An hour and a half, maybe even an hour 25. It was kind of like a mishmash of different scenes. It's basically throw shit at a wall and see what sticks, and quite a lot of it didn't really stick that well. It's not a bad film, I don't think. It's not a terrible film, but neither is it a film I'd ever want to watch again. I am a big fan of David Cross in general. I love his kind of Arrested Development, Mr. Show, and all his kind of like comedic film roles and stuff. And also he does actually feature in Obvious Child as well. But he's a really funny guy, I think. But I do think that he's better as someone who plays off other people than he is kind of on his own. I think Mr. Show, kind of Arrested Development, has got like a really good ensemble cast, and on Mr. Show, kind of like different comedians and stuff. But working on his own, it didn't really work. But like I say, it's not terrible, but it wasn't that great either. Some funny parts in it, it's kind of weird parts in it. There's also that kind of his daughter basically wants to become, this is kind of the plot point. Basically, his daughter wants to become wants to be featured on the reality show The Voice, and it's basically kind of her trying to achieve a dream, and then she needs to record this thing, and then this guy won't let her record it unless she offers certain services. and basically the ending, but the very ending, like the last like 20 seconds was, I knew that was going to come. It was completely obvious, but the ending before that was really funny. I thought it really turned the film on its head as well. It's something that I wasn't expecting. I'm not going to kind of spoil in case you do want to see it, but I say give it a go. If you hate it, that's absolutely fair enough. I would absolutely agree if you do hate it, but I didn't hate it. I didn't really love it that much. It needed a lot more editing, and that is it. So that is Hits, and that is the last thing in this What I Watched video. So yeah, I do apologise for the length of this video. It's going to be quite long, I think, but it's from the past 2 weeks. So obviously next week's video will be shorter. So it's been kind of like a bumper edition, but yeah, I hope you've at least semi enjoyed it. But I kind of like chronologicalizing what things I watched each week. I quite like the idea of this. It's very different to a Blu-ray update, because it does the same thing, but it does it quite differently as well, which I quite like. So I'm not going to stop doing this anytime soon, but videos from now on will hopefully, like touch wood, will be a lot shorter. And yeah, so I do apologise if this is far too long. But I hope you've semi enjoyed it, and yeah, that will do for this video. So another one of these coming up next week. Of course, Blu-ray update will be coming on next Sunday. Oh, sorry, this Sunday even. And there may be one or two videos between then and now as well. And yeah, that will do for this video. So thanks as always for watching. Have a great day.